Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, a very special episode with another Titan. Our Glazov Gang member this evening, Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Journalism Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center and a New York writer focusing on radical Islam. He is completing a book on the international challenges America faces in the 21st century, and he writes the best blog on the internet, The Point, at frontpagemag.com. Daniel Greenfield, welcome to the Glazov Gang.
Good to be on for my first time.
Thank you, Daniel. And it is an honor and a privilege to have your great blog at frontpagemag.com. Thank you very much.
It's an honor to be part of the Front Page family.
Thank you. Daniel, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 being the least, how excited are you to be a member of this new gang?
Oh, 20, 30 at the very least.
Okay, fantastic. Daniel, let's get down to business. I'm reading your blog all the time. Fantastic, shrewd insight into all the issues and the events. Let's begin with this whole government shutdown, the debt ceiling, Obamacare, what Obama's saying about it today during a press conference. He said once again that raising the debt ceiling has nothing to do with raising the debt, etc., etc. What's your angle on this whole thing?
Well, there's a lot of new math in the mix. That part is obvious. Because we've got the leader of the free world, supposed leader of the free world, in any case saying that raising the debt ceiling is not in any way going to affect how much money there is, how much spending happens, and how much taxes people pay, which is very much new math. Now, the whole Obamacare thing obviously was headed for self-destruct, so in a way this has actually distracted some of the attention away from the completely disastrous rollout of Obamacare, which we're finding out the website alone, which didn't actually work, cost over $600 million to implement, and it doesn't actually work. Now, if you're going to spend $600 million on a website that doesn't work, you might as well make it Facebook if you're going to go that route.
Daniel, how come the Point discusses this website and the catastrophe? I haven't seen it anywhere else. Chris Matthews isn't talking about it, neither is Anderson Cooper.
If Obama accidentally nuked Washington, D.C., Chris Matthews wouldn't talk about it either. Or he'd blame the Republicans or the Tea Party or say that it actually is better this way.
Daniel, what's going on with this shutdown? Who's at fault? What are the issues here?
The bottom line is that Obama wants unrestricted authority and he's absolutely unwilling to compromise. And really that's what government comes down to. We have separate branches. And we have the entire idea that there are supposed to be compromises. We have a chief executive, but his authority is not unlimited. And what Obama is saying, what Obama has been saying really throughout both his terms, is that he's not going to negotiate, he's not going to compromise, he's not going to give in on any issues, he's just going to repeat some trite lines about Congress doing its job and paying our bills and that sort of thing. And meanwhile, he's going to spread the pain, he's going to terrorize senior citizens in the national parks, he's going to kick them out of their homes, he's going to make it as difficult as possible for people, and then blame that on the Republicans. That's his whole strategy.
Daniel, what's the rationale of a president and his people who think that paying a credit card with another credit card and then paying that credit card with another credit card without cutting spending somehow works and is not going to lead to a complete collapse?
It's new math. It's the idea that money is infinite, and you have really high-profile advocates of this, like Paul Krugman, who essentially keep pushing the idea that you can just print more money, and this will actually help the economy because somehow devaluing money that creates economic growth.
And what will happen if this keeps going?
Well, at some point the bill comes due. You can only, anybody who's actually paid off one credit card with another credit card, as you said, discovers that sooner or later the bill comes due because you can't keep bouncing this around. We've got a very complicated shell game going on. We've got other countries participating in it. But at some point, the whole thing comes crashing down because, as we found out with the financial crisis, you can only move even huge amounts of money around for so long before too big to fail actually becomes fail.
Daniel, so we have this catastrophe at home with Obama and his crew raising the debt to such a point eventually where there's going to be a collapse. Let's take a look a little bit at the foreign policy and international affairs. The Muslim Brotherhood was in power in Egypt. It's rape gangs, it's Sharia support, it's jihad, etc., etc. They get overthrown by the military, so we've got the Muslim Brotherhood out, and Obama, instead of supporting those that are against Sharia and against church burning, wants to see the Muslim Brotherhood come back in. And one of your blogs today showing that now Obama has cut off aid to the military because he wants the Brotherhood in. What's going on here?
As I wrote right afterward, Obama is slowly tightening pressure on the government. He isn't declaring it a coup because he wants to retain complete control over foreign aid, and he's going to keep cutting piece by piece in the hopes of pressuring the government into, again, opening up elections to the Muslim Brotherhood and allowing them back into power. That's something most Egyptians, certainly most educated Egyptians, do not want. But at the same time, it's something that the entire Obama strategy was built around. This is what he tried to do with his Cairo speech in the New Beginning. This is what he tried to do with the Arab Spring. And he still has not given up on that. His goal is to put the Muslim Brotherhood into power. And the big liberal idea is that if you do this, if you put the Muslim Brotherhood into power, it will remove the motive for terrorists like al-Qaeda to violently take over. So if you let them peacefully, I guess peacefully being a relative word concerning the church burnings and the terrorism, but if you let them take over through the ballot box, they won't want to bomb buildings as much. That's the working idea there.
They think that the Muslim Brotherhood that comes in suits and smiles is a lesser threat and will counteract al-Qaeda and Islamic jihadists, but as we know, Daniel, they cement and pave the road for these terrorists.
They've always worked together. I mean, they're the same thing. Every al-Qaeda leader was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Arafat, for that matter, was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood spun off into the Islamic group, which had a role in the original World Trade Center bombing. And the current leader of al-Qaeda really came out of the Islamic group and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Daniel, overall, what do you have to say about an American president and an administration that actually supports the Muslim Brotherhood? And let's just add that we already know what they're up to. The explanatory memorandum, the project, etc., these documents that the FBI got a hold of, they themselves have talked about destroying America from within. We know this, and yet we have an administration that supports them. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the Red-Green Alliance. It goes back to the Carter administration, really, but this is the alliance between the left and the Islamists, and both of them have the same goal, which is destroying America. So really they have a common orientation, they have a common goal, and the left is our fifth column, and the Islamists have allied with them to take down America.
Daniel, are you saying that the person in the White House wants to destroy the country that he presently is leading?
Certainly from our point of view, what America is, it would be a destruction of America. From Obama's point of view, transforming America into a proper socialist dictatorship might well mean fulfilling its promise and the kind of rhetoric he uses in his speeches. But from our point of view, certainly it would mean the destruction of America.
He loves America, but the one that he sees in the future and the one he will build on the ashes of the one he wants to destroy.
Indeed, very well put.
Daniel Greenfield, one of your blogs today, touching on an aspect of, you could say, perverted sexuality in the Islamic world. I don't bring this up to be a smart guy or to be crazy or weird tonight, because sexual perversion in Islam is quite an issue, and I would argue that it's interconnected with jihad. You had a story today. Jealous Saudi husband divorces wife after she kisses a horse. Tell us what happened in that case and what it tells us about sexuality in Islam and in Islam overall.
Well, Saudi Arabia is a very controlling society. It's a society where control over women is absolutely out of control, to put it mildly. You have husbands using tracking on their wives. You have women who can't leave the house without their husband's permission. And at the same time, you have a situation where a husband can divorce his wife by saying, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, 3 times, and having that take effect. So it's a society whose morals are obviously bad. I think one study found that pornography used in Saudi Arabia, I think something like 53% of mobile phones in Saudi Arabia had pornography, homosexuality, that sort of thing is out there. But at the same time, you've got this myth of a society that's moral because it operates under Islamic law. And obviously that is not the case, and we can see countries that operate under Islamic law. For example, the Taliban had their dancing boys. Pakistan has quite a gay scene. You have, on the one hand, you have this kind of fake morality that's enforced by covering up women head to toe, by ensuring that all the men behave properly, supposedly. But at the same time, it's a completely amoral society. So you have this contradiction, this clash between the real and the unreal, and that's really the essence of what's wrong with Islamic morality.
And what happened in this particular case where the jealous Saudi husband divorced his wife for kissing a horse.
Well,
Why would you be jealous of a horse?
Well, you'd have to really ask him that. But there was a photo of his wife that went live on Twitter where she was kissing a horse. It's not, nothing sexual about it. It's the kind of photo you see at the Kentucky Derby 100,000 times. But he, for some reason, became jealous or enraged over the photo and announced that he was divorcing his wife. I know why he would why would he be jealous of a horse is hard to say, really, but his wife said that if a man really can't tell the difference between a horse and a person, then he has issues, to paraphrase from the Arabic.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's let's shed some light on how Obama is fighting our terror war. We know that when Johar Tsarnaev was in the hospital and was going to talk about what he did and why, Holder went right in there, sent people in there, and shut him up immediately with Miranda rights. Very interesting. One of your blogs the other day at the point that the Obama sent an elite FBI unit to read al-Qaeda terrorists his rights. Why would they do that?
Well, we're not 100% sure what happened, but overall the entire Obama idea was that they would have to protect the so-called civil rights of Islamic terrorists, even though they're not Americans. And in many cases, they were captured outside the United States. But the whole idea was that what Obama wanted to do was dismantle Bush's war on terror, dismantle the military commission, shut down Gitmo. He's still at that, by the way. I mean, his whole idea for Osama bin Laden was not to shoot bin Laden. I mean, he's been grandstanding. He's been taking credit for killing bin Laden. But what he actually wanted to do, what he admitted that he wanted to do, was bring Osama bin Laden in, give him a civilian trial, and use that to dismantle the whole Gitmo military commissions thing. That was his real goal. It was the SEALs who decided to kill bin Laden.
But Daniel, you would think that when you have a Johar in custody, when you have these terrorists in custody, you would think that you would want them to talk a little bit. How does protecting American security, how is that bolstered by giving terrorists Miranda rights?
Well, the FBI might want them to talk. Obama does in particular. If you want the liberal point of view on this, the liberal point of view on this is that interrogating terrorists doesn't work. Winning them over does work, and showing really other Muslims how nicely we treat them will prevent them from becoming terrorists. This has as much to do with reality as the grim fairy tales, but this is how liberals actually believe the war on terror should work, and we have people now running things who actually do believe it works that way.
Daniel, very interesting dynamics going on in Syria and all this Sunni Shia business and conflict. You had a blog the other day at the point where Hezbollah is actually pulling out of Syria. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there. Hezbollah hasn't fared too well in Syria.
Well, the Syrian civil war is really becoming a fantastic Muslim terrorist theme park where everybody's blowing everybody up all the time. At one point you had Hamas, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah over there all shooting at each other, which is, a pretty good day right there. Hezbollah was actually brought in by Iran because that's their proxy Shiite militia. On the other hand, you had Al-Qaeda operating there, so Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah went head-to-head. And Al-Qaeda really recruits psychopaths, while Hezbollah is more of a militia. And Hezbollah didn't do too well. Obviously, Syria has been gaining. Hezbollah probably played a role in that, but they've lost too many people. And their own people really don't understand, because the whole idea was that Hezbollah was supposed to be protecting Lebanon. I mean, they were protecting Lebanon by maintaining Syrian control over it, but they at least had the illusion of it as long as they were in Lebanon. Now they're in Syria fighting a religious civil war, and a lot of their supporters are not at all happy. Hassan Nasrallah lost his brother in this. A lot of high-ranking Hezbollah people have been killed, apparently, in the fighting. So now Nasrallah tried to offer a truce to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda basically laughed at him. The funny thing about the Shiite terrorists, including Iran, is that they really try to play up to the Sunni terrorists because they're isolated. So Iran has kept trying to play up to Al-Qaeda, has kept trying to reach out to Al-Qaeda. Let's make a deal. And Al-Qaeda has basically laughed in their faces. I mean, Al-Qaeda has used Iran as a harbor. The latest guy that they captured actually was living in Iran until 2012. But at the same time, they have no problem killing Shiites once they actually leave Iran.
Daniel, at the risk of sounding like a right-wing, heartless person, should our foreign policy be just sitting back and letting them fight and kill each other?
Well, it's not like there's a bunch of good guys there that we can arm and back. I mean, the closest thing to that would be the Christians, and I don't think we want to arm them and send them into battle. It's not would be even a bloodier mess than it is now, and they're a minority. So both sides are pretty awful. Both sides are pretty terrible. It's not like we should be backing either side. And, if they want to kill each other, it's their choice. It's not like we're forcing them to do it.
Daniel, before we go, tell me briefly, I want to access one of the brightest minds in the world, which I consider you to be. What is going on with the Huma Abedin-Anthony Weiner dynamic? You've got the Muslim Brotherhood operative, the perverted Democratic Jewish guy sending sex texts. What do you think? What do you make of that marriage and what's happening there?
Well, it looked like a smart bet originally. Anthony Weiner was the guy on the way up. He was a lock for mayor of New York City. And the whole thing imploded. So now Huma Abedin has to somehow gracefully exit this whole thing without making it a mess. And, if Anthony Weiner does one thing, well, it's make messes. Huma Abedin's whole rep was built on being classy. The question is, how is she going to negotiate a divorce with Anthony Weiner and still keep the classy reputation? So it's really going to take a very complicated exit strategy. They're going to have to buy him off.
Daniel, what is on your mind the most lately? What concerns you?
Well, the erosion of America, really. The whole idea of America, the idea of personal individuality, the idea that people can actually achieve their dreams is slowly being eroded. And while we're focusing on various issues, and those issues are all important, in some cases it's not that easy to see that the big picture is slipping away, that the America of 2013 is not the America of 2003, it's not the America of 1953, certainly. And in a way, while we see the trees, we sometimes miss the forest.
Where does hope lie?
Well, hope lies in the individual. The way Orwell not concluded, but one of the only pieces of hope he offered in 1984, which is a very dark and grim novel, was that some hope might lie with the pros, with the ordinary people. The people who were close to the party, what was left of the middle class in the socialist Oceania, were hopeless. They were monitored, they were cowardly, they were incapable of standing up. His hope, to the extent that he had any hope, lay in the ordinary people waking up and realizing what had been done to them. I think that's really the best hope for America. The Tea Party was a symptom of that. And let's hope that the wake-up actually happens.
Daniel Greenfield, thank you so much, and thank you for everything that you do and for offering all your brilliant wisdom at The Point on frontpagemag.com. And tell our viewers about your website.
Well, The Point is updated repeatedly daily. It's got coverage every day of various topics, some silly, like the horse divorce, and some actually very serious, like Hezbollah. We've talked about some of these topics, and we try to cover as much of the world in the silly and the sublime as possible.
And you also have Sultan Nish, right?
Yeah, I do have a blog, and Sultan Nish. Don't ask me to explain the name because it's an inside joke, but it's also updated daily with articles. And
there we have it. Daniel Greenfield, thank you so much for everything that you do and for joining the Glazov gang, and I hope you'll come back soon.
I hope so too.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of the Glazov gang. We'll see you all next week. Good night.